At 3 in the morning in wartime England, 10 men woke knowing they had just a 1 in 4 chance of surviving the day. They were a B-17 crew over Germany in 1943, facing the deadliest odds in the air war. Their precise ritual masked dread, and each name on the roster carried its own fate. What could drive them to climb aboard for another mission when most never returned? The answer begins before the sun rises. A sergeant's boots on concrete, a hard shake at the end of a bunk, and the day began in darkness. 10 men, some barely out of high school, pulled on wool socks and buttoned up uniforms by habit, not conversation. The barracks smelled of wet canvas and nervous sweat. In the mess, the rare sight of real eggs and bacon on a metal tray said more than any bulletin. It meant a deep mission. It meant the odds were worse today. Each man's name was printed on the roster outside the briefing hut: pilot, co-pilot, navigator, bombardier, flight engineer, radio operator, ball turret gunner, 2 waist gunners, tail gunner. The oldest might be 24, the youngest 19. Every role came with its own risk. Ball turret and tail gunners knew they were the first targets and the last to escape. Survival depended on each man doing his job in the right order, with no mistakes. In the equipment room, hands reached for heated flight suits, wires running through thick fabric meant to fight the -60 air at altitude. Flak vests hung heavy on shoulders, steel plates stitched into canvas, never enough to feel safe. Parachute harnesses were cinched tight, the chest clip cold against skin. Each man checked his oxygen mask, throat microphone, and escape kit, maps, silk currency, a compass, sometimes a lucky coin or letter folded deep in a pocket. Waist gunners slung their chutes over one shoulder. Ball turret men rehearsed the awkward crawl they would need to get out alive. Gear mattered. The chaplain's quiet words floated above the shuffle of boots and equipment checks. Attendance was always higher before a mission to Schweinfurt or Regensburg. Some men mouthed the prayers, others stared at the floor. No one wanted to be the one who did not come back, but superstition ran deep. A certain seat in the hut, a lucky scarf, a ritual handshake before the doors opened. Faith and habit shared that space. The briefing curtain snapped back, revealing a line of red yarn stretching deep into Germany. A ripple of groans, a few forced jokes. Each man glanced at the silhouette chart, positions marked in shadow, the ball and tail gunners outlined in black, their odds the longest of all. The ritual was over. The day's work had begun. Engines rumbled on the hard stand as ground crews moved along the line, hands slick with oil and frost. Each B-17 carried its own name painted beneath the cockpit glass, some grinning, some grim, all personal. The flight engineer's boots echoed on aluminum as he checked for hydraulic leaks, ran his glove along the wing route and traced the fuel cap. 4 Wright Cyclone radial engines, each good for 1,200 horsepower, fueled for 8 hours and 1,000 miles. Ammunition belts snaked into turrets, 50 caliber rounds stacked tight, 13 guns, but never enough to feel safe. The bomb bay hung open for the armourer's final checks, racks loaded with 500-pounders and incendiaries, 4,000 to 6,000 pounds of steel and TNT, enough to tip the centre of gravity if not chained downright. Navigator's voice cut through the morning static, reading compass headings and wind drift from a clipboard, plotting the route in pencil over the red yarn line to Regensburg. The map was a patchwork of enemy airfields and flak belts, every inch measured in minutes to target. The pilot and co-pilot climbed in, checked control surfaces, then called for the engineer's thumbs up. No leaks, no frost, all systems green. Oxygen was set for 25,000 feet. Above 10,000 feet, failure meant blackout in seconds. The flight surgeon's warning echoed. Exposed skin would freeze solid at -60, and a faulty heated suit could mean frostbite before the enemy even fired. Formation call came over the radio, engines to full, tail wheels up. 36 bombers in a combat box stacked 150 feet vertical, 300 feet wingtip to wingtip, engines roaring in unison. Takeoff was a rolling thunder as each aircraft lifted heavy and wheels tucked up while the English countryside dropped away. The navigator called the first course correction, voice clipped and precise. Over the channel, radio silence ruled. Gunners scanned the sky, hands tight on their cold triggers, eyes searching for the first glint of trouble ahead. The only sound now was the drone of engines, the hiss of oxygen, and the knowledge that everything depended on the line holding tight. Navigator's voice broke through the intercom. Initial point in 1 minute. The formation closed up, wings nearly overlapping, engines thundering in lockstep. At 25,000 feet, the nose of every B-17 pointed straight for the target, a factory complex already smudged by smoke from earlier waves. The pilot glanced at the bombardier, hand steady on the yoke. "You've got it from the initial point." The bombardier hunched over the northern bomb site, adjusting dials with numb fingers. He pressed the intercom, taking over. "Bomb bay doors open." The engineer replied, "Doors opening, doors open." Cold air roared through the fuselage, rattling loose metal and stinging faces behind oxygen masks. "Steady, no turns," the bombardier called. The pilot eased off the controls, holding altitude and speed, trusting the C-1 autopilot to follow the bomb site's corrections. Above the city, the sky erupted in black puffs. Time fused 88 and 128 shells, hundreds of shells per minute, each one calculated to burst at this exact altitude. The B-17 shuddered as shrapnel tore through thin aluminum. The smell of cordite and hot oil filled the nose compartment. Gunners called out that fighters were at 12 o'clock high. A wave of Focke-Wulf 190 and Messerschmitt 109 hurtled head-on into the formation, cannon fire flashing, tracers streaking past the cockpit glass. The top turret and nose guns hammered in reply. Spent brass rattled around boots, oxygen hoses snagged on elbows. "Hold it steady," the bombardier snapped, eyes locked on the drifting crosshairs. The horizon bucked as another flak burst rocked the ship. 20 seconds, steady, left a hair, hold it. The intercom became a chorus of clipped voices, each man at his post, every muscle tensed for the impact that might come. The formation flew straight and level, locked in by doctrine and necessity. No evasive action, no escape, just the endless seconds over the target. 10 seconds, on target, stand by. The bomb site's mechanism clicked, bombs away. The aircraft lurched upward as 6,000 pounds dropped free. The pilot felt the controls go light, bombs away, close bomb bay doors. In the chaos, the formation held tight, flying through the last wall of flak, counting the seconds until the turn for home. For 30 seconds over Regensburg or Schweinfurt, time stretched and snapped, every man certain that if death was coming, it would be now. Landing gear refused to drop. The flight engineer crawled into the narrow belly, hands numb as he wrestled the manual crank, 360 turns by hand, every muscle burning. In the waist, a gunner pressed a bloody rag to a friend's arm, morphine syringe already spent. The radio operator called in a red flare for priority landing. Engines coughed as the B-17 limped over the English coast, fuel streaming from punctured tanks, one prop feathered. Out the side window, empty spaces in the returning formation told their own story. On the ground, ambulances lined the dispersal, medics waiting with stretchers. 1/3 of the bombers that landed showed jagged holes in wings and fuselage. Crews dragged out the wounded, sometimes the dead, covered with a spare parachute, left in place until the mission was logged. In the debriefing hut, hands shook as bourbon was poured. Intelligence officers collected terse reports, flak at 23,000 feet, fighters in waves, ball turret out at the initial point. Each man's account was another line in the ledger. The numbers, were relentless. On the Schweinfurt raid of August 17, 1943, 60 B-17s failed to return. 100 more limped home with heavy damage. Across the 8th Air Force, 26,000 men were killed in action in that single year, more than the entire Marine Corps in the Pacific. A 25-mission tour was the official goal, but the math was simple. With average loss rates of 25 to 30% per mission, a new crew's odds of surviving a full tour hovered near 1 in 10. Most never made it past 11 missions. Still, men kept flying. Some believed the bombing would end the war sooner. Others could not abandon the 9 faces that depended on them. Each empty bunk in the barracks, each kit bag packed for a missing man, drove home the cost. The next morning, new names appeared on the roster, replacements ready for another roll of the dice. The mission always went on. Today, fewer than 1% of wartime B-17 crewmen survive. Those odds shaped not only military history, but the very meaning of risk and sacrifice. As the war grows more distant, the statistics remain, reminders that the price of strategic decisions is always counted in human lives. Share your thoughts below.